Hello, Scorpio. This is Lada from Astrolada.com with your December 2017 horoscope. But this is more than a monthly horoscope. This is a horoscope. You'll be coming back, hopefully, over the next 2 years, because I'm gonna outline for you in detail, hopefully in a structured way, what Saturn in Capricorn is going to bring you. This will be my perspective, guys. I've done a video with Marina as well. It's more of a perspective as well, but I'm giving you, maybe I'm going a bit more in depth because I have more time to do it on my own. And as you know, I like going in depth and giving you all the possible perspectives, so you can come back to that videos over and over when those set of challenges that Saturn represents start appearing. This video will help you navigate through them. This video will give you a sense of meaning as well, because when you see that things start manifesting and materializing according to just prediction, you start believing that there is a cosmic order, that whatever challenges you're going through are not something random, and you're not some kind of a puppet, that you're not some kind of a lonely child in the universe, but that your soul some kind of almost like agreed on this, and there's a sense of order and a sense of peace that comes from knowing that. Plus, you how to deal with those set of challenges. And again, I'm not going to be scaring you only, because Saturn is not only about challenges. Yes, it is a karmic planet. It can slow things down. It can, and life is not always easy. Life always requires efforts. The best things in life are the things we put efforts in. The best things we appreciate the most are the things we achieve by gradually climbing or doing efforts ourselves. Who are the most depressed people? Apparently most suicide after people win the lottery, because they're not mentally prepared to be there, and they lose the money within a few years as well, because they haven't done it naturally, step by step, on their own. They're not prepared for that, so they don't know how to deal with such things, with that energy. And Saturn, that's what it does. It prepares you through some hardship, through some delays, through making you work harder in certain area of your life. But then once it gives you the fruits of your work, which comes gradually after work, usually by the end of this process, you're like, yeah, I made it. This is great. And you keep it for life. It's not something that will be taken away from you. So where has Saturn been for you, Scorpio, in the last 2.5 years? It's been in your second house. Especially people that have Scorpio rising would have felt it more. The moon and the sun to a lesser degree, but it's still, you can still check your horoscope if it's your sun or moon in Scorpio, and it would still be relevant for many people. So there were possibly some quite restrictions in regards to your resources, in regards to your finances, in regards to security. But Saturn doesn't take your money all the time. Some people say, oh, Saturn will take all my money. Possibly it didn't even take your money. It's actually, maybe it created some initial restrictions. So it alerted you to the need to be more responsible, more organized, more thrifty, more mature, more systemized, streamlined, to streamline your resources, to streamline your money, to create more security for yourself and your family. And that was the biggest underlining lesson for most of you, as counted from your sun, moon, or ascendant in Scorpio. Of course, it's counted, for example, from your moon if it's another sign, or from your sun. But that pinch, that restriction, slowing down, or the need to have those basics, necessities financially, because second house is that. But Saturn has, yes, there might have been restrictions, but it alerted you to the need to mature, to take things in your hands, to be more responsible, more organized. And don't worry, Saturn in December is leaving your second sign, from sun, moon, or ascendant in Scorpio. So financial resources, scarcity of resources is not necessarily only, financial things. Sometimes Saturn in the second house can pinch the absorption of nutrients in the body, because second house is food. Maybe there might have been, you might have gone on some austerity diet, or decreased calorie diet, or something like that as well. Or it might have pinched the resources available overall. So maybe for your business, you had to work with all the than you usually used to. You had to use all the resources because the new ones are not so easily forthcoming, or something like that. Or maybe you had to and you had to be more cautious financially because you're saving for a house, or because you were, saving for degree or something. I can give you an example with someone who Saturn was transiting their second house. They were having their job, but they had quite a few restrictions financially, because they were paying off a student loan at the same time studying, or another person who took a pay cut so they can go to a company they wanted to be in. But it's still a progress. They took a pay cut for those couple of years while Saturn was in their second house, but only because they wanted to be in the right company, So such scenarios might have played for you in the last couple of years, Scorpios. They might have been, it's never fun when Saturn is in the second house, especially since we put so much importance on financial security. And even if you have money, maybe you just felt like it's not enough, or maybe you worried about it. Maybe you created some structures of safety and security to protect your resources. And on the psychological level, Saturn in your second house was testing your self-worth. Is it based just on money? Is it based on appearance? Self-worth? The second house is self-worth. How much do you value yourself? And if your self-worth was not realistic, Saturn gave you a very realistic appreciation of yourself now. If you are praising yourself too high, maybe you are brought down to earth a little bit, according to the socio-economic circumstances currently. Or if you are underpricing yourself, you maybe became painfully aware of that, maybe of not being valued enough and respected enough for the work you're doing or whatever. And because of that, you had to build new rules and to restructure your self-worth in some way, to see yourself, and maybe sometimes even new way of selling yourself, let's say. And because of that, it might have changed your financial situation, but usually the changes that Saturn bring, they're long lasting. You can keep them for life. So now you've come back with more maturity. You're coming out of this period in December with more maturity about resources, with more newfound respect about managing resources. Maybe you're a spoiled brat that thought money grows on trees, and now, you were made aware of the scarcity of resources, having to work for them. Or maybe you're spending too much electricity and not preserving electricity or water, and you became very conscious of the Earth's resources while Saturn was in your second house and how to manage them. And you started thinking, oh my God, there is not enough good water, there is not enough clean air. I have to preserve those resources for the universe, for our children. It might get played on a more universal level for some of you, Usually, though, it has also personal impact as well, in your personal life financially as well. So hopefully you're coming back with more stable self-worth that is based on more lasting values and more realistic appreciation of yourself, more realistic approach to resources and finances, saving and security. Hopefully you're coming out of this period. And actually there might be a little recapitulation in December of all this thing, because Mercury goes retrograde in the whole 2.5 years before, because Mercury goes retrograde in December in your second house. So it might bring up for you to revise those lessons of security, of self-worth, of resources. And I can give you an example even with the baby. Saturn in the second house, how it works. My baby was born with Saturn in the second house. He's had it there. And he could not, second house is food and resources. I could not give him the breast milk that is the best for children. He had to eat artificial, desiccated, dried milk, which is in the second house. He didn't get the right nutrition. It can just might have played for some of you like that, kind of a bit of a starvation of nutrients, for example. It's not necessarily always money. So, but now Saturn is coming out of your second house, Scorpios. So, and December, there might be like a revising of this, what you learn, having to go over, maybe rebudgeting again, having to go over to put the final touches. Mercury retrograde is about going over things. And again, it's in your second house retrograde, where it's conjunct Saturn in a big part, especially the start of December. So you're going over those lessons. So there is a final hurdle that appears that you have to resolve, and which disappears by January, and you're out of those issues after that, Scorpio. They get resolved, or you pass to the next level, you pass the exam, or if you don't pass it, you lose something, and then you have to take this exam again in 28 years when Saturn is again in your second house. So when Saturn goes in the second house, say maybe from your ascendant, if it's not in Scorpio, from your moon, then you have a chance again to take this exam and hopefully to pass it with flying colors. But Saturn moves, and again, December, there might be like maybe some extra expenses that come. Again, demonstrate your good organizational abilities with your resources, maybe reevaluating prices of projects you're selling, reevaluating how you're praising yourself as well, a renegotiation of money of some sort. Things like that can come to the surface. Some practical or something from some lost objects might come back to you, but don't take risky. To the end of December, I would say don't take risks involving money. Just stay with that more Saturnian mindset. Focus on what you've learned and to apply for the last time those lessons of Saturn more intensely. While Mercury is retrograde, which is about cautiousness, cautious approach, maturity, the tried and tested, checking every detail over and over so you don't miss certain things and don't make mistakes as a final goodbye from Saturn. But if you're doing the right job, you might have a final present from Saturn for a job well done, because Saturn likes to reward us at the end of its journey through a sign or house, as we call it. And that would mean that Saturn wants to reward you maybe by completing some project or something that finally rewards you with some material manifestation that comes to you towards the end of the year. Sorry, I'm shooting from my bedroom, guys. It's outside, it's too windy, and sitting upright is killing me. And I really want to give you the best information without distractions. I was shooting the videos from the first 4 signs yesterday outside, and it was too hot. I could not summon all this detail. And I think it's such an important transit that I'm going to be telling you about. So Saturn is moving from the end of December into your 3rd house, which is easier position for Saturn. There is a saying, why that malefic planets in malefic houses, or upachaya houses, in ancient astrology it's called houses that improve with age, give better results. Because there are difficult things to be done in the 3rd house, and Saturn gives you the perseverance to do those difficult things. In ancient astrology, the 3rd house is known as the house of difficult things. I don't want to scare you, it's not so difficult. 3rd house is about learning new skills. It's about mental work. So what to increase, because Saturn always increases the duties and responsibilities and always increases the workload, is mental workload. And maybe because you reevaluated yourself differently over the last 2.5 years, now you're ready to gain new skills. So Saturn will give you the perseverance and self-discipline, because it's in Capricorn, its own sign, which makes you much more willing to put hard efforts. Because at a time, Saturn can force us when it's in other signs. Sometimes Saturn forces us in situations to gain skills or whatever, to develop or to work hard on that area without us really wanting to. But when it's in Capricorn, almost like your inner teacher and inner, how do I say, inner, it's your inner teacher is much stronger, and your inner voice of wisdom, your inner voice of self-discipline is much stronger. So it will allow you to discipline yourself for all those things Saturn requires from you to do when it's in the 3rd house, which Scorpio for you is mental discipline, which will come to you over the next 2.5 years, structuring your thoughts, and actually removing a lot of illusions. Whatever Saturn passes, we remove systems, artificial illusions. And 3rd house is, first of all, your everyday people in your life. So you can kind of isolate yourself a little bit. People that you meet to chit chat, to have a coffee, to smoke a cigarette with. It's people you call on the phone, you call friends to tell them some gossip or to just relax with. You'll start feeling that such conversations are meaningless. You might start feeling over the next 2 years that you don't have time for such frivolities and just casual social interactions. And many people, whether they wanted to know, usually it's self-imposed when Saturn is in Capricorn, but it might be a little bit from outer influence, that their social life dries up a little bit. especially social life with people they meet in everyday environment. I can give you an example. My husband had Saturn in his third house from ascendant in the last 2.5 years, and he stopped working, and no more interactions with colleagues, no more. And we have babies and we're at home and we're just like, he doesn't have social interactions, even though before that he was always around colleagues, around people, you know, and even there was restriction on him communicating with relatives, third house, you know, because of new circumstances in life, basically. So this is one area that can dry up a little bit, but usually it's because you have other priorities. When Saturn goes in the third house, you're like, I don't have time to just socialize and, you know, meaninglessly or chit-chatting. I want to do serious activities, serious mental activities. Often the socialization can be decreased because of increased mental workload when Saturn is in the third house. Say you work in an office, you get given more reports to write. Anything which is third house is writing, speaking, writing reports, you know, communicating of some sort. Anything which is, and most administrative jobs, most white-collar jobs are connected to writing, speaking, meetings of some sort. So the workload around meetings and kind of such a bit more like commercial activities, like business meetings, like group interactions, like brainstorming in group, having to work in a group activity, having to develop a project, they become more than other times. This is something that you have to expect. Such things will increase, and such interactions with others and communications are only favored when Saturn is in the third house, when they're in regards to work. So yes, my husband communicates with many people a day, but these are people that I work with, and emails that he helps me with, you know, so it's kind of work, it's been work focused. And such responsibilities and duties increase, as I said, business, commercial responsibilities and duties. That's great for business usually, and for business meetings and things like that. People that work in writing, speaking, they have increased heavy workload. It might feel a bit drudgerous and repetitive, a lot of repetitive mental tasks that they have to learn. But this, the ultimate goal of Saturn is to structurize the mind, to organize the mind more, to structure, organize the mental processes, to deepen the mind, to make it more serious. So that's why, again, people start feeling like, you know, superficial conversation and social interactions, it's not so appealing to them. They want to learn something serious. They want to research some skills. Third house is skills, practical skills. Maybe you might even be forced, like, for example, to learn to operate a computer system, or use Adobe, or build your own website or something like that. Some skills that you acquire that you can practically apply, and that you work very hard on. You might go to take courses. Those courses will directly impact and affect your career, your work, as Saturn rules work. And they can increase your social positions, because Saturn is in Capricorn, social positions. But they can come because of a pressure from outside for career, but they can definitely implement your career plan. So if you have something to study, Scorpios, if you have something to take some degrees, some new skills, it's not going to happen overnight. You might feel like it's almost like such a difficult task that you're learning. Saturn in the third house is almost feels, I remember when I had it in the third house from my moon, I was like learning all those new astrology techniques, and I was thinking, there's no fucking way I'll ever be able to use them. They're so complicated. I was overwhelmed. But 2 years of studying them, now you master them, you know. So easy to, but at the period, in Saturn, as always, while you're in the middle of the process, it might feel like it's a bit overwhelming, it's a bit too heavy. But you also have the self-discipline to structure your mind, to organize your mind, to force yourself to study. Also, if you're taking exams over the next 2 years, fantastic time to go back to school, or to study, or university, or to get accepted to any kind of educational place. Third house to do with any studies. Especially nowadays, universities are not about so much philosophy and showing you the big picture, but learning skills. And so it can indicate a period while you're studying, for example, again, but a period acquiring skills in a very in-depth level, taking your qualifications somehow to the next level as well. But you cannot rely on luck. The Saturn only rewards hard work. Yeah, if you had Jupiter there, I would say, you find a course, you'll breeze through it. You can even take your exams without preparing, you'll be lucky, whatever. But with Saturn in the third house, yes, you can learn to play the piano, to master something. Saturn is a master perfectionist. And you'll have probably instructors that are quite demanding on you. You can, or you can be your own instructor that's quite demanding and putting pressure on you. But you can master it, you know. And as I said, third house is what we call difficult things. Well, learning anything new is difficult. Learning to speak a language is difficult. Learning to operate the computer is difficult. Developing a new skill set. Third house is skill set. Saturn can help you master or develop skill sets. It all takes time, and it's laborious. So learning to play a piano, an instrument, is third house. Imagine how long it is, and how difficult and how discouraging it is. Learning to play masterfully anything. So yes, training of any sort, but it is a difficult thing. But now is the time to do it. Saturn will help you. Saturn in Capricorn gives this ability to be very organized, to be very disciplined, to follow through. And as I said in the other videos, there is a rule: when Saturn transits its own sign, or any planets when it transits its own sign, that house. Saturn usually delays, blocks, does not allow. But in Capricorn, Saturn will manifest, especially towards the end of this transit. Towards 2020, you'll feel it the most, Scorpios. And you'll see that you are much more proficient, with much better skill set, with much deeper skill set, with much deeper ability for organization. And also, if you work in any careers that are connected to writing, speaking, administration, commercial activities, anything to do with media, with marketing, with branding, with advertising and publishing, it's all third house. You will have a much bigger workload in the next 2 years and something. Be prepared for that. But this workload can increase your social reputation. Saturn is in Capricorn. It will manifest a higher standing for you. Don't get overwhelmed by all those, you know, a lot of repetitive mental tasks, or a lot of kind of burdensome reports or writing. I remember Saturn transiting the third house from my moon. I was doing my website, and I had to, and learning those techniques, and I had to do a lot of articles because you know, I realized that you can't get known, and had to force myself to start videos. That's when I started doing videos. I forced myself, Saturn in the third house, you know, because I knew that how else do you make yourself out commercially there, which is the third house. You have to engage people through social media, through communication, through clients. And I started forcing myself. And honestly, with Saturn, it's always with a bit of resistance. You're like, I don't want to do it. And you know you have to do it, but it's always like puts you out of the comfort zone. So you can have to do such new skills that put you out of the comfort zone. I was dreading them. I was resisting to my husband for 3 months, and he said, you're doing a video, sit and do it. And I did it, and I was like, oh, okay. And I was shit at it. And it took me 2 years to perfect doing videos, and I'm still quite and I'm so grateful, because look what you can. And Saturn was in Libra then, so it made wonderful results. Saturn in Capricorn will have wonderful results as well. So especially if you have self-owned business, third house is the house for self-owned business. The self-owned business through which you make, but which skills, house of wealth, but through your own skills. So now Saturn in the third house, will be teaching you how to acquire new, highly, let's say, highly structured, and which can help you overall in your career in a big way. And if you have your own self-owned business, is the time to do all the social media, all the marketing, all the writing of articles. Oh my God, I remember I was forcing myself to write an article every 2 days, and I did not want to do it. With Saturn, there's always a sense of resistance, you know. Maybe it's not going to be the case for you because Saturn is making only great aspects, you know, to Scorpio, sextiles, you know. But I had resistance to it. And I remember that the only way I could do it is when I just said to myself, every other day I'll write an article, I'll make a post, I'll start making, I took courses on marketing on Facebook, and I started doing 1, 2, 3 posts a day on Facebook. So you learn such things, you know, when Saturn is in the 3rd house, and you can become self-employed, or you can generate self-made wealth through those skills. Basically, you're amassing skills for that purpose. You see, so it can give really good results, Saturn in the 3rd house. And the best way for you to learn those skills is not to try to cram them and think that you'll learn a language, or you'll learn this new skill, or that you'll be able to work through that group environment with, you know, because it's small group work as well, and that you'll be able to structurize and learn those new skills, whether to write, to speak, or maybe you get a new job and there you are asked to write reports in a very different ways than till now. And you have to restructure all the way how you do your work and stuff, you know, and how you mental work in particular, communication. And yes, it might be very frustrating, but it's necessary. And when you do it, you become, and it doesn't happen overnight. With Saturn, it might take a year, it might take a couple of years. But by that time Saturn comes out of your 2nd, 3rd house, you become masters of that. And just to warn you, if you have trips of any sort, they're much more likely to be in relation to something to do with work rather than pleasure. Short trips of any sort, there might be a lot of prolonged meetings that you have to endure, writing projects, speaking projects. Of course, you know, there might be also some complications in your relationship with your siblings, relatives, brothers, sisters, but it's usually, if you're working on some project together, this is great. Saturn in the 3rd house, fantastic for this, you know. But otherwise, there might be some cooling off, or maybe you don't have enough time for such people because of duties and responsibilities. Anyway, guys, that's what I had for you. And by the way, Saturn from the 3rd house will be making trine to your 7th house. So I have good news for your personal relationship. Your 7th house is in Taurus. Saturn making trine there. Trine is an easy aspect, harmonious aspect. So Saturn over the next 2.5 years will stabilize your committed partnerships, business or personal committed relationship, and can lead to relationship deepening of commitment. So that's my prediction for you. Watch out this December for this recapitulation, repeat, and even results, starting to see results from the end of December on all the lessons of Saturn in the 2nd house that we talked about. And by the way, if you want a much more in-depth presentation of Saturn in Capricorn, do join Robert Phoenix, world-renowned astrologer for over 30 years experience, on the 10th or 9th of December. If you can't be live, you can get the recording, but it becomes 30% more after the 10th of December. Till then, it's 30% off. This is the webinar I've been expecting all year, because this is an astrologer who has personal experience with Saturn in Capricorn. He was an astrologer when it happened 28 years ago. He worked with clients, so he'll be giving you hands-on, first-hand stories and experiences. I'm just making suppositions here based on the logic of the signs and how I think they'll work. He will give you real-life stories of how it worked 27 years ago. I'm giving you stories of other Saturn in the 3rd house from different ascendants that it played out. But in signs, it always, different signs, it has a different kind of manifestation. So he will give you this in depth, and he will show you what it means personally for you. And I can't wait for his insight. And plus, there's another webinar with Rumen Kolev, the leading astrologer in the world on ancient Babylonian astrology. He single-handedly revived ancient Babylonian astrology, which is turning out to be one of the most correct ones. It's 2 days in the middle of December. You can watch it after that. You can buy it after that. It's $180 dollars. Otherwise, he sells this webinar for he does this workshop for $2,000 or $2,500. People fly all over the world to go see him in Bulgaria for this webinar, but he's doing it for you in the comfort of your home over the internet for $180 only. It's Christmas, and we're going to go through all the 130 degrees of the fixed constellations, and we're not going to only talk about the constellation, the 12 constellations. We're going to talk about the other constellations. There is Cetus, there is Persephone, there is Orion, and how it projects on your personal horoscope, you know, and how it, you know, if you're born with a constellation of the dog star Sirius, it can immediately mean that you will work with dogs. And we'll show you, don't even need to know astrology. We'll show you how it can mean that you will be a leader, because Sirius is a leader, spiritual leader as well. But, you know, or you can be born with predisposition for drowning because you have a nebula of drowning rising on your ascendant. So you're forewarned, be careful, you know, for ship travels or whatever. Or you can be born to be a multimillionaire because the star of wealth is rising in your horoscope. So not even needing, and we'll go through each of the 12 constellations, actually 36 or 46 constellations, and where they project in your personally in your horoscope. And we'll have 2 days to work with all of that and to learn how astrology was done in the ancient times. And it's amazing. It's like literal. It's like a mirror image. You see the constellations in your mind that will generate for you, and they tell us literal image story. While tropical astrology, what we do is much more psychological, you know, it's still about symbology, but there it's actual, the stories of the constellations and the mythologies that we came with, and the images translate directly in life. Like you can even look like those constellations, you know. So much, guys. Do join us. I know you love occult knowledge, so check out our webinars with Robert Phoenix and Rumen Kolev in December. Thank you so much, and yes, enjoy the Saturn in Capricorn new influence. Thank you.